Hello, you amazing little marketing bees. You're tuned in to episode 59 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello again, and welcome back to the Marketing Buzzword Podcast. This is the podcast which helps you to understand what all of these business and marketing buzzwords actually mean and how they can be helpful or not going forward. I'm your host, Ben Roberts, and in this show, I'm the marketing bee in charge of making sure I can get on the right guests and ask the right questions to make sure that these words and phrases actually make sense. And in today's show, we're going to make sense of the buzzword gamification. And before we do that, I need to remind you this podcast is powered by Talkative. Talkative is a company that brings together live web chat, voice calling, video calling, and co-browsing together in one package embedded into your website with just 3 lines of code. Allows you to collect more information on your customers and provide a better customer experience and customer service. Check it out, find out more at talkative.uk. And one final thing before we get on to this week's guest, if you are loving the show, please do leave a review on iTunes. I've had a few more reviews come in, but it's really nowhere near for the size of this show. So please, honestly, it'll take you 20 seconds most. Scroll down, click the review button and leave a couple of words. I really do appreciate it. And John Asperian has left a lovely video of this, and then you can find that on marketingbuzzword.com. So that's more enough about me in the show. Let's time to introduce this week's guest. And this week's expert buzzword bee is a guy called Michael Barine. So Michael Barine has spent the last 15 years driving innovative marketing strategies for brands across the globe, and in 2013 formed his digital marketing and creative company, Grace Innovation. Under Michael's vision, Grace Innovation focuses on implementing innovative creative strategies that adapt to the cultural shifts of the times and focus on strategic media buying dedicated to growth and traction. He's been featured in Inc. magazine, IBM Think Marketing, and Sirius XM Radio. He is also a contributor to Digital Agency Network and Falcon.io. And the reason I got this guy on talk about gamification specifically is because of the work he's doing with a company called Puzzle. And it's really cool, and I couldn't think of anyone better to talk about gamification. So, it's more than from me. Let's get on with the show. Hi, Michael, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Hey, absolutely no problem at all. I'm really excited about this because, for me, this is a buzzword I've been looking at trying to get on for a while. I wanted to find the right person to really break down this word, and this word is gamification. And I've been led to believe, Michael, that you're the person to help break down this particular buzzword.
You know, I think you're right. I'm definitely one of them. I mean, I have some experience with it, and gamification is definitely a fascinating industry that is definitely growing. So I'm excited to talk about it as well.
Yeah, no, and I agree. It's something that's growing, but the reason I want to talk about this, and maybe I'm being a bit harsh straight away, because is this just a fad, Michael? Is this just something that people are like, oh, we want to do something a bit different at the moment? Gaming's hot right now, so we're going to make some games out of it, and we're going to call it work. Is that what gamification really is right at the moment?
I don't think so. I think that it's in our DNA to be attracted towards games. And I think that's because games are fun. Games take you out of your kind of day-to-day grind and put you in a space where you're very present. You're very interested, in the game, and it kind of acts as a focal point for your mind. And again, it gives you a little bit of an escape from the everyday monotony of life. So I think if you look at the history of human nature and human beings, games have always played a role in our lives. And I mean, whether you're talking about the gamification of a sales team or you're talking about, major league sports, games are an everyday occurrence. And I think it's just kind of embedded in our culture.
Yeah, I see that, isn't it? Because I guess right from when you're a small kid, it's all about play and learning. And then as we grow up, it's just an interesting thing that we're almost, as you start growing up in terms of education, so like games as part of work are almost brought completely apart, where you're not taught that games is necessarily learning, apart from maybe when you do sport in school. And then suddenly we're getting to a stage now where we're going adults again. They're like, no, actually, work and gaming is completely intertwined. And it's just a fascinating way of how society is developing at the moment, where it almost, and in school they try and split apart gaming and work. Work is this, gaming is that. And now we're seeing this convergence of both subjects again in a way that people is just absolutely loving right now.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. I mean, there's definitely, depending on the culture that you live in and the culture that you're raised in. I know, right? We have this thing where you kind of separate fun from work, and it's, I think today though, with the way culture is shifting and changing and transforming, people are engaging in jobs and starting companies and businesses and working in environments where those two worlds are kind of merging together. I think that's what you're seeing, and I think it's becoming more accepted, to include gamification and game playing, in a workforce environment. So not only with like work, but also with marketing campaigns, engagement campaigns, customer loyalty campaigns. So there's a whole bevy of use cases for gamification.
Yeah, I think that sort of leads me quite nicely onto my next point without even realizing it, and a really nice segue onto the next point. And I agree that there are so many potential use cases, and one thing that I'm seeing quite a lot in terms of use for gamification is within businesses itself. So the idea of businesses encouraging their employees to get involved in more things by including games in everyday work. Now, there are two schools of thought on this that I'm seeing, Michael, in terms of, is it actually building really company morale? Is it building... is it really improving business? Or is it just a distraction? Is it just a way for employees to just sort of hide away from work? And does it make people less productive? Do you get what I'm trying to ask in that question?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I think you're going to see cases of both, just to kind of answer, with a neutral stance on it. But I really would lean more towards that it actually would increase productivity, because I think at the end of the day, people like to be engaged. And, a sales job, someone might be really good at it for the first, year, 2 years, but at some point, if they don't absolutely love what they're doing, they're going to lose interest, and not everybody has the blessings of having a job that they absolutely love every day. So some people still have to go in and still have to work that sales job, and, they have a family to support. So when you add something like gamification to the equation, it brings a new energy, a new fresh energy to a job that might have gotten a little bit stale. If that is a sales, I know sales is a major area where gamification is used. They turn the process into a game with rewards and points and various things that you can do. So with that said, I do think that it increases productivity. I think it engages the employees, and it shows them some type of feedback loop, that they can pay attention to see how their performance is transforming or transgressing.
Yeah, I think it makes sense actually, because it encourages engagement. You can track, and that competitive element. I guess as a society and as a people, we like to be competitive. And actually, you know what? Especially in certain areas of the business, competition is actually really important, especially in terms of sales and even maybe marketing, even customer service. Like, have you got the highest levels of satisfaction scores? Creating that levels of competition actually does help breed the improvement for the business. And I love sort of the angle that you went down there. That's something I think is something that businesses don't always necessarily think about. And I think that's why we are seeing more of these businesses adopt gamification on an internal basis.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that competition, and you hit the nail on the head with what you were saying, competition breeds innovation. If Apple was just by itself and didn't have a Samsung, there'd be no innovation. There'd be no pressure to innovate, I guess. Obviously there'd be innovation for the sake of, innovation, because you go down a creative path and it's inevitable. But, I think that competition produces pressure, and pressure breeds innovation and possibly even faster, innovation.
Yeah, no, absolutely, most definitely. I think that innovation is a really important point, and I think it's even important not just for those big businesses, but actually how it can transcend down to those small micro businesses and small businesses where 2 or 3 employees. I know that we have a game called Backlink to the Future at Talkative, and basically what we do is we have a competition every month of who can get the highest number of high domain authority and high relevant backlinks. And for us, it's a great way of actually encouraging all the employees to try and find new ways of getting high quality backlinks, which is one of our main metrics. So and for us, we're having to try new bits of content. We're trying new ways of communicating, new bits of just new ideas to try and stand out a little bit more from the other people in the business, but also in a way that works together as well, because we're all pulling in the same direction, but ultimately competing against each other a little bit in order to improve. And gamification is amazing for that from that point of view.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you reminded me, like with the story you were telling just now about how you were applying it. It reminded me of kind of the hackathons in the Valley, where you have groups of coders and hackers trying to complete various tasks, to unlock rewards or gain some type of respect within the community. So I think that's, you guys are kind of shining a light on that type of culture as well. And I think we see even today, traditionally, we had sports, and you even see with the surging energy behind eSports and the popularity that you see that industry getting now. I mean, they expect that industry to grow tremendously within the next 5, 10, 15 years. So I think that's a testament right there that, gamification is real. People love playing games. There's a culture built around games, and there's at the end of the day, there's money to be made, around gamification.
Yeah.
If I told you 20 years ago that we're going to be, filling conference halls to watch people play, against each other in a game of Mortal Kombat, you would have thought I was nuts. Jump ahead 20, 25 years later, and it's a reality.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, we see, especially in like the Asian market, the eSports community is just absolutely surreal. You see the sizes in those arenas, you get more people watching these eSports on screens than you do actually at like actual physical, what people would class as traditional sports these days. It's just completely crazy.
Oh, definitely. And look, at the end of the day, these large brands, like Campbell's Soup and Target and McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's was a pioneer of gamification with their Monopoly game. So they're looking for these gamifications because they understand how important it is to engage the customer and potential customers, especially in a very noisy world where everybody on social media is being bombarded today with so much information and so much data. If you can keep a customer engaged through gamification, or you can keep an employee engaged through gamification over the course of 2, 3, 4 days, 2 weeks, a month, I mean, that's very, very valuable, because you're able to bring their attention span above the noise and have them focus in on your brand continuously.
I think that's an amazing point, and this is almost, again, a really nice segue into almost the next part. And I want to look at, after we looked at the internal bit, go on to the consumer-facing side of it. And I think this is a really nice way of saying, actually, look, some people assume that gamification now is heavily focused on the digital side, which, of course, I think it has incredible potential, and probably even more so on the digital side, especially for tracking and conversions. But actually, the example you mentioned with McDonald's there, it's actually quite an old example now by modern marketing standards, but it's one that has been so successful for them. And I've seen so many people, including myself, I was like, shoot, I need to buy a McDonald's so I can make sure I fill up or get a chance to win that prize. And actually, as a physical location-based business where digital may not be your bread and butter, or it may not be like over 50% of your transactional income, actually those physical game-based your gamification on a physical scale, that is actually can be really powerful for you to keep people coming back on a regular basis, and more often than they normally would had you not encouraged them with a game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing behind gamification. Is it gamification it's an attention grab. When we built, I mean, that's the secret that they figured out. When we built Puzzle, which is a gamification platform that my company built to basically provide brands with a way to engage their users through puzzle building and solving. First of all, gamification is fun for the user. It's fun for your customer. We see these apps like Words with Friends come out, and people are playing that. They're addicted to it. Games get addictive, and I think brands are recognizing that there's a very engaging quality to gamification through loyalty programs, reward programs, and they're utilizing that to reward their customers, but also trade for data, which is very important. They can use gamification for activations. They can use gamification to outreach to new customers and new audiences. They can use gamification to pull very important data points out of the game. Does a person play at night? Does a person play in the morning? Are they more interested in fitness games as opposed to food and restaurant culture? So there's a lot that can be learned from the game playing itself too, and I think that's why brands find it so important. And then of course, obviously, the continual engagement of their customers keeps the brand on the top of their mind, which is one of the most important things you can do. It's what leads to almost 75% of conversions today are because you re-engage a customer or you re-engage a lead or a prospect.
I think that was fascinating there, the amount of different ways in which brands can use games like Puzzle to essentially collect either data, different touch points, and that's something that maybe a lot of people I don't think necessarily think of. It's like, okay, we're going to create games and maybe we're going to get people coming back and maybe capture an email address from something from that individual, but actually all these different metrics that you can gather and all this different data you can gather from different types of games as well. It doesn't just have to be the same game, but different types of games will help you gather different metrics and help you understand your audience more, help you build those personas, help you to create other bits of content or create new products, because you can see what your customer is engaging with, the type of person they are, the type of, again, another example was the times of day that they interact with your brand. And I think that's an incredible way of looking at gamification, is actually don't limit yourself to just collecting email addresses. There's all sorts of different ways in games that which you can use to grow your business, and it doesn't have to be very limited. If you can think of a game, you can pretty much find a way and a reason and justification for doing it.
Yeah, if you can create a game task that increases your business's metrics, and that's what we did at Puzzle, and that's what we do at my company, Grace Innovation, for other brands, is we figure out ways to engage their customers. For instance, you just said, like, the email is great, but what else can we do? Like, we used to, have people, go on YouTube and watch, the first, 35 seconds of a video for a clue. Now you're getting video views, right? We used to have people visit the website and go on a scavenger hunt for an Easter egg. Now you're getting page views, you're getting time on site. It's helping search engine optimization. It's driving traffic to the website. Now you can retarget to them, once they visited your site. You're right. There's a lot that you can do, when you start these games.
Yeah, I think all those different options, isn't it? Again, almost like gamification. I think people will think of gamification like, okay, we want to engage people, we'll create a game. But actually, I think gamification is almost a strategy in itself. Would you agree with that? That if you want to go down this gamification route, you've almost got to go all in? Or do you think that brands can sort of dip their toes in the water a little bit? Is it something that brands have really got to invest in? Or is it something that brands go, oh, we think we should try a game? How should brands look and businesses look at adopting gamification?
I think it's kind of, you kind of said it best. It's something that you can dip your toes into. It's also something that I believe right in this moment is not the most necessary thing. So it's two stances. Like, video today is necessary. If you're trying to market online, you're trying to launch a digital marketing campaign, or you're trying to do anything with brand building or get your business out there, you need video. It's, because the guy next to you who's your competitor who has video is going to see better results than you. And video, it's got lower costs online for advertising. There's just a whole bevy of benefits. Gamification right now is a little bit more fringe. So it's the type of thing where if you try it and find success, it's great. but people are not beating down the door trying to work in a gamification program into their company yet. So there's a little bit more of a sell in order to get businesses and brands on board with it. But what's nice about it is like what you just said, you can try a game online with your audience and your customers and see how they respond. And you can do it for very low cost. I'm sure you can find an app or a plugin or a platform that will facilitate it for you, like some type of software as service. And you can definitely just kind of test it out, dip your toes in the water, and see if it works with your audience. The most important thing is, does it work with your audience? You need to know your audience well. You need to have the insight and the understanding to know that if you launch a game with them or a gamification experience with them, will they benefit from it? Will they engage with it? Will you benefit from it? So I think that's important. But the only way sometimes to tell is to launch something, is to strategize and create something and launch it. But to answer your question, just come full circle, I do believe it's something that you can just kind of test out in the beginning and take like a lean approach to.
So is that almost the way in which ideas are generated around games then? Do people need to think, I've got a game, and say, can I fit that game around the audience that I've got in my business? Or should they look at their business and go, okay, well, this audience may fit this sort of game? Or it's almost like a chicken and the egg scenario, I guess, if you will. Is what comes first, the idea then the audience, or the audience then the idea, if that makes sense? Or am I going completely doolally with this?
No, I think you bring up a really good point. I think crafting the game around your audience, if you have insight into your audience and you've been working with your customers for a long time and you know what they like, and you're supposed to know your market. So knowing your market would be the first step to a gamification, campaign. Then crafting and building a game around your market. For instance, right? Let's say you sold comic books, right? Let's just say you were a comic book, reseller online or something. Your audience is probably going to be from the ages of 10 to, early 20s who are your core. And then you have people that are a little older, but 10 to 20 is going to be like a core audience. Now you should be looking at, how do people 10 to 20 consume content today? What are they interested in? They're interested in micro content, 5-second, 10-second, 15-second pieces of content. So you should build your game around that, because that's what's going to keep them interested. Not going to a website, on a scavenger hunt and looking for things and, reading blogs or, engaging that way. You'd really want to be more focused on how they consume content and how they engage with the internet, and then build the game around that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, isn't it? I think once you know your audience, and again, as you said, you should know your audience, and it's trying to understand exactly their wants, thoughts, and feelings. And maybe you can even come up with a few ideas first. Okay, we come up with brainstorm or thought shower, whatever the jargon is for that these days. So I lose track of whatever's politically correct in that term. You come up with a couple of ideas, and then again, you almost use like a focus group to understand. Okay, if put it in the ideas and in the minds of the audience, and then craft a full game from that. Exactly.
That's the way to increase success. That's the best way to increase success. And then look for partners in your space that could get involved as well. If you're, like I said, if you're the comic book store, maybe you can find a news and comic book media site that can help as well and get involved in it. Now you have two audiences, two kind of platforms working on the same game, non-competing businesses kind of pushing each other and perpetuating this.
Yeah, I absolutely love that idea. I'm a huge fan of collaboration and working together. I mean, collaboration over competition. I mean, obviously, even if you're not necessarily competing, being able to create some of those synergies, with my inverted commas, is amazing, because actually, look, you can increase the audience, you're increasing the value, you're getting out the message there that is relevant and across a much larger field, but it's relevant. And as long as it's relevant, when you collaborate with these people, you increase your potential exposure with very little risk, really, on the downside of it. And I think that's an amazing sort of a bit of advice there that you gave, and that's something I'd encourage people to take on wholeheartedly. You don't have to necessarily go down this gamification route by yourself, because actually, look, it can take time. It doesn't have to. I think, as we'll probably cover in a little bit, it doesn't have to take a huge amount of time to build a game or come up with ideas, but it can take a while. So trying to get those collaborations reduces the risk and increases the opportunity.
It does. It increases your organic reach as well. We did a game at Puzzle for a client where we tapped into also culture, try to tap into culture. And that, what I mean by that is also like look at what's going on in culture, what's happening as far as events, occurrences. For instance, when we ran a game, we ran it around the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight last year, and we did a game that like basically was targeted and launched in front of people who had an interest in that, and we gave away, like in honor of that, we kind of gave away prizes and rewards geared towards that demographic of males in their 20s, who are interested in, beard oil and men's grooming products, or who might have an interest in that. And then we themed everything around that event. So it seemed very branded. You could do that with Christmas. You can do that with Halloween. You can do that with, if you can do that with a concert, the comic book thing, like let's say that you could build a gamification experience around Comic-Con in San Diego or New York. I mean, that's when you start to kind of bring things to the next level and start creating branded gamification experiences where, and then combining, let's say, the digital and the real world is a very interesting thing as well. So you might have some tasks that people need to complete at San Diego Comic-Con, and then they need to do a few things online that help like share your business, like tweet out, your hashtag or your account, and then they can, win prizes based on those activities. So that's kind of a fun way and an even more engaging way, to kind of add gamification to your arsenal. And then it also builds into the realm of experiential marketing. It borders on that a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think that's an incredible point, isn't it? It's actually, again, I think I talked about it, so I can't remember exactly which episode. I think a few episodes of this podcast now is looking back and actually not necessarily newsjacking, but actually leveraging the power of events, current news trends, and things that are going on to not necessarily newsjack, but actually use that as a way to enhance your message and create relevancy and create context your messages. Because it is, like you said at the start, it's easy to maybe come up with an idea, and it's easy to come up with certain things. Well, I mean, easy is a relative term, but actually to stand out above all the noise and all the clutter and all the chatter, it can be really difficult. So if you've got those avenues in which you could potentially reach more people, because more eyeballs already looking at, say, I don't know, hashtag Super Bowl, and you can really go all in on that, then actually you've got more potential eyeballs than if you went in on, say, I don't know, hashtags and then did something really micro. I mean, I guess it depends on your business, but as long as something's trending and relevant in that industry or that field, then you're likely to pick up more traction.
Exactly. And the more partners you can bring into the gamification experience, the more events and cultural and life events that you can build the gamification around, the more you create opportunities for success. And I think people are kind of used to that as well. People are used to Black Friday sales. They're used to back to school sales. It's in our culture. It's in our DNA, that we almost expect it. We almost expect something like that. And I think also, there's a thing that we're not really touching on too, but nonprofits. Nonprofits are always trying to engage people and let people learn about their cause and what they're raising funds for and what they're trying to do. And I think gamification for nonprofits in that sector is just overlooked completely. I think it's a great way to engage people who want to donate, right? So like create gamification experiences around the fundraisers, create gamification experiences around donations, and maybe figure out a way within that to reward them, both maybe monetarily, but also with some type of currency that you can create within that's important. So I think for nonprofits, gamification could be a very, very big thing for that whole culture.
I think that's an amazing way, because again, as well, charities need to keep people re-engaged and try and make sure they keep up those monthly subscribers, those monthly donations, because ultimately it's trying to keep people understanding the messages, the causes, and why people should keep coming back instead of just setting up and go, oh, why did I sign up to this charity and then cancelling their direct debit? You want to be able to encourage people to come back and add some more value, not just a bit of altruism and hoping that their budget's getting a bit tight, they're going to have to cut their direct debit again. It's actually trying to encourage people, no, look, you're also getting some other value from this as well, and that's how you keep people coming back. You keep people not only, it sounds harsh, but people do cut their direct debits off when they get a little bit hard up. So it's trying to be able to keep that level of engagement really high so people don't do that and they get some value instead of just being altruistic from those charities.
Yeah, what you just said is one of the core functions of gamification. Is you're using your platforms, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever people are seeing you run the gamification on those platforms, and now you give value to those people for following you. And that's numero uno for digital marketing today, is how do we use our accounts to give value? And with gamification, you add another tool that you can provide value with through emails, and whether it's email marketing or social media marketing.
Yeah. I think that all makes a huge amount of sense to me, and I think I think you're 100% right there that it is an area that's overlooked. But I do have one sort of maybe a concern, or maybe something that I can understand a lot of the listeners to this show may be thinking in their head, and it's like, okay, this is great. I can understand that maybe I can create games and I can engage people, maybe I can collect data, but where do you draw the line and between actually becoming almost like a games company and actually your core business? Where do brands understand? Do they set up a gamification campaign as a one-off? Should they set it up as a longer term thing? How much time and resource? Because I could see it could be quite easy because games are fun and interesting, that even as a brand you can get really caught up in creating games. How do brands really balance the sort of time and effort spent in gamification? Is it just purely in the ROI and whatever metrics you set, and as long as you're getting the value from there, then it's okay?
I think that what you said is a great point, but it's the same thing people said about social media and creating content and becoming media companies. And now you have a company like Nike, creating docu-series and creating content, and it's the same wavelength of thinking. You have to break that thinking a little bit and say, like, we are a gamification company now, just the way you're saying we are a media company. Everybody who's producing content online, from Reebok to Nike to whatever, Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, and even smaller companies like your local coffee shop or fashion, brands, they're all becoming media companies. And they were saying the same thing 5 years ago. Like, do we have to become a media company now? And the answer is yes, because that's how marketing is shifting. Marketing is shifting towards the consumer and what they want, not what the companies dictate. The companies don't dictate anything today. It's all about listening to the consumer, and the consumer is driving the boat today more than ever before. And the companies that respond to that, and the companies that adhere to that and build content and build media and build creative to entertain, inform, and educate people, are the ones that are winning out there. Because they're not trying to be salesy. They're not trying to, beat the door down for a 15% off coupon. They're giving real value to following them on social or engaging with their content. So to answer your question, I think the answer is yes. You almost become a gamification company in a sense that, you're going to adopt this technology and this media the same way we've adopted blogging, the same way we've adopted, making tips and tutorial videos, and it's a very good thing that you noticed there. But if you look back at history, it'll just keep repeating. And the answer will be just the same way we adopted media, and companies are now media companies. They'll be gamification companies as well.
Yeah. Michael, if only this was a video podcast, people could see me lying back on my chair, thrusting my fists in the air, because this is exactly what this podcast, and this is exactly the sort of stuff I want to get out of people, because it's understanding that people, when they talk about buzzwords, and we use gamification as our buzzword as the example, is sometimes they will disappear, but then most of the time they become part of the general psyche and the way that people it just becomes part of marketing. Email marketing, social media marketing, content marketing, all these different terms then become, this is the terms that people sort of almost went, no, I don't think that will ever become a thing, and I don't know if I should adopt that, and then it becomes a proper thing later, and we look back and you go, how did we ever not do this? Or why did we ever think this wasn't going to be a thing? And I agree, some businesses, it may not be 100% relevant just now, but it is something that is going to be relevant to pretty much all businesses going forward. And we've highlighted so many examples. And I absolutely love, Michael, that you've brought that up, because that is exactly what I want to sort of get out of this podcast, is trying to show people that this is the term, this is where we're going to break it down into little segments to say, this is how it makes sense, and this is why it's potentially going to be so important going forward, and actually how, if you become a gamification company, that's amazing, because you guys at Puzzle are doing some amazing things out there, and you are pretty much a gamification company, and you're leading the charge on this stuff, which is why I wanted to get you on the show.
Definitely. And I think it's just about speaking the truth. That's really what it is. I mean, whether or not people want to hear it or not, really has nothing to do with us as marketers, right? We just respond to the way culture is shifting, and you either pick up on it or you don't. And you just said it, like, there's still people today that don't understand that they need to be blogging to increase SEO and to help with their organic SEO, and thus help with their AdWords if they're running things like that. There's still people that haven't caught on to that. And then even further, there's people that they don't understand how important video is to a marketing campaign. So they don't understand how important audio is, how important it is to realize that more people today consume audio than ever before because of podcasts and mobile phones. So, and the fact that it saves you time. If I can listen to content while I'm working, it's not distracting me and I'm able to still be productive. So, you said it perfectly. It's not really about what people want. It's what's just going to happen. And we're here, as marketers and business entrepreneurs and technologists to help usher this in and help consult with these people who are open to listening to us. And yeah, I mean, I think in 10 years, we're all going to be playing games in VR. And those games, when you're in the game and you're throwing the football, your buddy in the game is going to be wearing a Reebok t-shirt. And that's, or Reebok's going to be creating these games, or Nike's going to be creating games in there and partnering with Electronic Arts and partnering with Rockstar Games. And so I think that's really where the future of that's going. And I think games and gamification is going to play a major part in all that. I mean, imagine when in the future your sales team, the gamification process for your sales team will be in VR, I mean, that's obviously, we're thinking, way ahead, but that's where it's going. So, or instead of taking everybody to a resort, or taking your client to a nice fancy dinner, you guys throw on some VR headsets and hit the tennis ball around. It's just that kind of crazy, wacky thinking that it almost sounds science fiction right now, but that's literally everything that we use today was at one point sounding science fiction.
Yeah, everything has a time where people are like, this is a next generation. I couldn't ever see us getting to this point, and every step forward, everyone's amazed at the levels in which we can keep advancing. And I think it's going to be a fascinating time, and I think that's exactly why I waited to make sure I got on the right person to talk about gamification. So thanks so much today, Michael. I mean, I've had my mind blown open and sort of open to the possibilities of what gamification can bring to businesses of small, large, and again, like we said about non-profits as well. I think it's a fascinating time in the industry. So thanks so much for coming on and sharing your insights in the industry. Definitely. I really appreciate you having me on, and I love talking gamification. And I think also something very important, just to, you had mentioned in the beginning, if there's any buzzwords or any kind of, next steps that you think people should be looking at, or I think people should be looking at, definitely look into how gamification will interact with the blockchain. I think that's going to be a big thing. Yeah, I think I didn't even have to ask the question anymore now, Mark. You stole my thunder here. Well, you and I were so close now. I was able to read your mind. I know, right? Yeah, but I think you're right, though, isn't it? Blockchain is again, it's going to be, I think as well, that's another one of those people who are like, oh, it's a buzzword for now, but actually there is so many technologies and so much is going to come off the back of blockchain that, again, we're going to look back and go, why do we ever think that this was a term that wasn't going to take off or become part of everyday vocabulary? But on the flip side of that, Michael, what buzzwords are you thinking, are you hating right now? What other terms are really grinding your gears and you go, oh, I wish people would stop talking about this, or I wish this term had never been invented in the first place?
I think a big thing that it's not so much terms, it's that people think that certain things are only for like millennials or for the younger people. And I think that is something that kind of grinds my gears a bit. When you see, like, when my dad starts sending me YouTube videos, like, that like technology's taken over. Like, my dad is like in his 60s, like, the last piece of technology he knew very well was a VCR. And when my dad's sending me like, conspiracy theory YouTube videos, which I don't watch, but when he's sending those over to me, like, that's when that something's happening here. And it's not just for the 15 to 35-year-olds. The 15 to, in my opinion, 30-year-olds or so, they drive culture, but everybody else is affected by it. So, my mom's on Instagram following my Instagram stories. My dad's sending me conspiracy theory YouTube videos. People are talking about podcasts. They're getting into podcasts. This stuff is not just for the kids. Snapchat 5 to 10 or 15 second consumable content is not just for the kids anymore. Everything is changing because of the way we're starting to consume and interact with these devices, and it's only going to progress. And I think that's just the one thing that bothers me, is that everyone thinks it's for younger demographics, and it's like, no, like, you want to advertise in a magazine for $3,000. With that $3,000, I could reach hundreds of thousands of relevant audience members and customers on Facebook, where way more of their attention is at. So I think that would be the one thing then, would just be to realize that this is not about the youth. This is not about millennials or any other generation. This is about how there's been a major shift in the way we consume content and entertainment and interact with each other in the last 5 to 10 years. And it's not going away. It's not going anywhere. So that's just something I think that I would like to just get out there. That's all.
No, I agree. I think all the way back in like episode 5 now of the podcast, I spoke with a guy called Ash Phillips about exactly that, and how everyone's talking about these millennials like they're this abnormal, or even Gen Z, like they're this weird bunch of people that are suddenly just, I don't know, they're like completely different to any other generation in society, when no, it means they adopt things a little bit quicker maybe in some areas, but other areas not so. It's just people, and it's just lazy. We just basically on that whole episode we came out with, it's just lazy targeting. It's just lazy. We're going to typecast everyone in a 15-year age gap and call them millennials, and they're all exactly the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, brilliant. Thanks so much for coming on today, Michael. It's been an absolute blast, mate.
Yeah, man. I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Quite literally, this episode of the show was one of those ones that I absolutely love, because I shed loads of notes. I learned a lot, and I thought, and it sort of opened my eyes a little bit. It was exactly what I want, and for me, it really broke down the point of gamification and the potential options that it has, and actually it helps widen the possibilities that gamification can actually have, because I've seen certain aspects of it, but it's actually thinking about it from another context, which I think is really important. And I think, gamification has an incredible part to play in the future of marketing, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more from this buzzword going forward. And I think it's something that you should potentially consider too. And I know if you've got any questions, please do feel free to get in contact with Michael. All the links to all his social outlets are going to be in the show notes at marketingbuzzword.com. Thank you very much for listening, and back on Thursday with another bite-sized buzzword. Goodbye.
This podcast is part of the You Are the Media Network.